Well, we did.
Okay. My name is Robert. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is September 1st, 2017. And I have a sponsor and I have a home group, solution group, and we meet on Tuesday and Thursday nights at 7:30. Speaker meeting on Tuesday, literature study on Thursday. So come see us if you're interested. But I guess I'll share, like I'm supposed to, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. And I was just thinking, how much different my life is today than it was 6 years ago. It's just night and day. And it's helpful for me to come up here and speak. It's helpful for me to carry the message to newcomers. It's helpful for me to go to first step meetings to be reminded. It's like, that was what my life. I could not stop drinking. I tried over and over again, and I could not fucking do it. On my own power, I'm going to get drunk, and that's just the bottom line. So I'll just kind of start at the beginning a little bit. I was born in North Carolina. I'm a twin, but like my parents didn't know they were having twins because I'm that old. They didn't have ultrasound back. Well, it wasn't everywhere, and so I was a surprise. And so, and my mom would I'm her miracle baby, and I was a sickly little thing, and so I had to like go to like the hospital all the time when I was a baby, and so she was like, "You're my our miracle baby." And so normal people will be like, "Yay, thank God, thanks God, you saved my life, and I'm so grateful to be alive." And hooray. And it's like, that's not me. I'm just like a different weirdo piece of shit who shouldn't even be here, sort of thing. That was my thinking when I was from very young. And obviously that's probably not healthy looking back on it. Like six years old, it's kind of messed up. But I mean, that was like, it talks about I have a disease of perception, and my perception was really messed up from the jump, it seems like, and like I have this astonishing lack of perspective. Like all I can see is my own thinking, my own narrative about what's going on, and like the real world or like reality doesn't really factor into that often. It's like it is so in my head from a long time ago. So from pretty much from the beginning. So and that's why I drank, because it talks about restless, irritable, and discontented. It's like before I found alcohol, like the way I manage that was to like sneak out of the house, go smoke cigarettes, destroy property, set fires. Like I did not know what to do with myself. I knew I was going to get caught because I was like, I used to think I was a good liar, but no, I was really bad at it. And I always got caught, always got in trouble. But I just could not help myself. I mean, I just like that lack of impulse control or what have you. And so I was constantly getting in trouble. And like I had tried to like drink alcohol before. I mean, like for some reason I was like drawn to like getting messed up. I really wanted to do it. A, I thought it was cool, and B, I just like wanted to, you know, do stuff that I wasn't supposed to do. I mean, and so, I tried to drink and I couldn't get the taste, I just didn't like the taste of it enough. And so just a couple of times it was kind of a failure. But for some reason, when I was 14 years old on New Year's Eve, and I don't think normal people remember their first drink this vividly, but I 100% do. The first time I felt the effects of alcohol, it's like New Year's Eve. I was 14 years old. My parents were in the middle of a divorce, but I went to this keg party, and it was $5 get a red solo cup kind of deal, and it was MGD the keg, and so I don't remember exactly what it was. And like for some reason that night it tasted delicious. I tried beer before and I couldn't get it down, but for some reason tonight it tasted amazing. And so I was drinking as much as I possibly could. And people were like commenting on how good I was at this drinking beer thing. It's like, I mean, I never been good at anything in my entire life. It's like I finally found my natural talent here. And then, and I could talk to girls, and I was a foot taller, and my zits fell off, and I like, and like I was comfortable in my own skin for the very first time. And, got, of course, like obscenely sick and projectile vomited everywhere. Felt like complete crap the next day, but I was like, I'm gonna do that as much as I possibly can from that moment on, and I did. I mean, until it did stop working. But I mean, high school was like a struggle. Like, I mean, it wasn't that bad, but it was just like I just could not get out of my own way. It's like if I needed help, and I would not ask for help because I was just too prideful. I just didn't want you to know that I didn't know. Thought I could figure it out on my own, and and I just never could. It's like, and people would see me struggling and try to help me, and I would just completely reject any kind of help that people would try to give me. And everything good in my life today is because I accepted help finally. And so that's, I'll get to that later, I guess. But so like barely graduate from high school by the skin of my teeth. And like the family that I grew up in, it's a family of educators, and the education is really important. It's like you go to college. We don't care. And like the only college I can get into was like a community college. So I went to college for a year, and like, was still doing what I was doing, but I did like well enough where I could transfer to like a 4-year institution. And so I did that. And like my first night away from home at school, I drank a bottle of Jägermeister and took my pants off apparently. And like, and so, I mean, just like that's how I drank. I mean, I drank to excess from the jump, like, and it was just never a couple of drinks here or there, ever, ever, ever for me. Um, and I thought that was normal. And I guess I'll backtrack a little bit. While I was in community college, I got my first and by some miracle, my only DUI when I was 18 years old. And I got sentenced to these classes where they, try to tell you about drug and alcohol addiction and whatnot. And I was talking to the counselor, and I was telling this lady how I drank. And I didn't lie about it because I didn't think I needed to. I thought what I was doing was normal. And she said, "You're just one of those people that can't drink." And I was like, "That's not true." I mean, it's like, I'm actually really excellent at it. I was going 10 miles under the speed limit, and my friend over here was drunker than me. So I was actually being safe when I was, and so, I mean, all being in a jail cell, I'm having my dad having to come bail me out at 3 a.m. None of that stuff was going to stop me. I got my license suspended, so I had to like ride the bus. I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, is like spread out, and I lived 2 miles away from the closest bus stop, and so I had to walk 4 miles every day basically just to get back and forth. And so, even that, all those consequences, not even close. I mean, I don't care. Like, I am going to drink, and I didn't understand. I thought I was making a choice, and from very early on in my drinking, it's like I just had no choice about it. I was going to drink regardless of the consequences. It was not when I finally stopped drinking, it was not as bad. It was not like the worst trouble I'd ever been in. I'd been in way worse trouble, and that still didn't stop me. So anyway, so I got that like little tidbit of information that I completely just disregarded. And so, I flunked out my first semester. Like and that was the first time I thought about trying to kill myself because I was just brought shame to my family and all this stuff. Because I was terrified. I mean, and that's a big part of my story. It's like, I'm fearful, I'm selfish, I'm dishonest. Those are my chief character defects. And the fear like activates all of my other character defects. And I didn't understand until I, did some work in this program, just how fearful I was. And, so I was afraid to go to class. I was afraid like I wasn't going to be good enough. I was afraid that people weren't going to like me. And so I would just stay in my dorm room and play N64 and drink all day long and smoke weed. Um, and I flunked out. And I was like, this is how just like checked out from reality. Is like I was surprised that I flunked out. It was like I hadn't gone to class in like 2 months. I was like, I can't believe what. So I mean, just completely delusional, and yeah, my life is unmanageable. So like that first part of the first step is like my powerless over alcohol. I didn't know that, but that's what was going on. It's like I wanted to do well, but I couldn't. I could not stop drinking. I couldn't not put it down. I couldn't. That was my priority, and I think if you had, there a couple of times when I would try to get sober later, like you know, I didn't acknowledge how much of a priority drinking was. It was the number one priority. Every other thing was secondary. And that's true right now. If I went out and got a fucking Bud Light tall boy or something at the gas station, and after I get done here, baby, wife, law school, anything else is secondary to getting that next drink. And that's just the truth about my drinking. And it took me 20 years to really understand that. I mean, I'm grateful that finally did happen. But anyway, so I mean, I couldn't get out of my own way. I like wound up back. I went back to school and then like got into and like things were kind of going okay for a while. And that was sort of the pattern. Like it would go okay for a little while, and then some calamity would happen, and I'd be back, screwing up again. And so, I finally did just kind of like just give up on school. I went for 5 years and never graduated. And so moved back to Charlotte and moved back in with my dad. I got like these crappy jobs and like got this crappy apartment, and it was kind of like trying to keep it together. And I remember those times. I was like, things were really, really bad. It was like, I mean, I was just poor. It was lonely. I was drinking all the time. I was like 225 pounds. It was like kind of gross. It was bad. And I would fantasize about stopping drinking, but I had no idea how to do that. And so, fast forward, it's just like, I mean, like various stages of homelessness, like could never, like we got jumped outside of a bowling alley and like got evicted from my apartment and just like all this nonsense. And I've met this guy at a job I got, and I was like the guy on the couch, and like him and his like wastoid roommate were just like smoking weed and playing video games on the, and like they were doing way better than me because I had to like live on their couch. So I mean, that was what my life had become. And like, and they were into other stuff. And I had done every drug there was except for cocaine at that point. And then I did that. And that kind of like accelerated the process of things going really badly. And so, there was like some girl I was living with who was like my, fast forward down the road is like I was living with this girl, but she was like my roommate, but I thought I was in love with her and yada, yada, yada. And, you know, my insanity was like, I'm going to kick you out because you're just too crazy. You show up like high and drunk and doing crazy shit and screaming at police officers and just stuff that people shouldn't do. And so she was going to kick me out. And so I tried to kill myself. I tried to cut my wrist open. But I didn't, I did it wrong. Apparently I'm supposed to do it vertically. I'm just a fuck up all around. So I mean, I was calling my brother and sister and telling them goodbye and all that stuff, and they're like, okay, that's enough. And so had an intervention. And I don't know if anyone's ever been intervened upon, but that's fun. And so they, intervened, and like at that point they were like, will you be willing? I mean, I think they had seen the show Intervention. I used to watch that show drunk, and I was like, I am not nearly as bad as these people. It's like, I mean, I have a job and that's it, but I have a job. Um, Not nearly as bad. But I mean, but at that point I had nowhere to go. And I was working like this crappy job at a deli and like, I had no place to live. And so what am I gonna say? It was like, no, I'm gonna just live in my car. Um, so I got shipped off to Georgia to go to rehab for the first time. And that is where I got exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, I had been to a meeting before. I mean, there's like so much crap. Man, like anyway, but I had been, I got arrested about a year before all this went down with the guy on the couch thing. It's like I had got arrested for doing something pretty heinous, trying to steal stuff. And my stepmom's a public defender and she got me out, but that was the first time, not just the drunk take, it was like the orange jumpsuit and like, and you can't leave. And that was, um, I mean, a little bit of a wake up call. It was the first time I had prayed in a long time, getting on my knees in that jail cell. Guys, like, God, please help me. And that was operable for about 2 months. And then I started drinking again. And so the consequences could never be bad enough for me to stop permanently. Like, and it talks about it in the book. It's like, I can't bring into my consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of a week or a month ago. I'm without defense. And that was my case. It's like, it was bad. I would stop. And then 2 months down the road, that hurt and that pain was not operable. I would pick up the drink again. And so, the rehab, I did get exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous. And the first thing I heard in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, because it would take us to my meeting every day in the druggy buggy. And, they would talk about restless, irritable, and discontented. And that was the first thing that made sense to me in Alcoholics Anonymous. It was, I would wake up many, many mornings. It was like, what the hell is wrong with me? And it tells me it's like, I am restless, irritable, and discontented without the ease and comfort I get from taking a few drinks I see others take with impunity. And so that was really my problem in a nutshell. It's like, I have this nature that's very restless, irritable, discontented to this day. And I have this idea that I see these other people drinking successfully, and why can't I do that too? And despite all the mountain of evidence that I can't do that, I was like, I can convince myself that I can. And that was the problem. And so, I was in rehab, and I mean, my first sponsor in AA was like another inmate at the rehab, but he had been there like a month longer than I had. And they told me, it's like, how do I pick a sponsor? It's like, get somebody who has what you want. And all the girls really liked this guy at the meetings. And so that's why I wanted. And so that's why I picked this guy. And he had no fucking idea how to take anybody through the steps. He tried his best, but like no idea. And so I was clueless, but I did hear about this 4-step, and you were supposed to do the 4-step before you graduated or whatever, before you left the premises after 4 months. But I could never do that. That's like, I mean, like telling somebody like, you know, my weird sex shit, or, just how angry I was or how fearful I was. I was not capable of being honest with myself about that, much less in somebody else. It's like, so I could just not get past that fourth step. And, fast forwarding a little bit, it's like, I used to think I had a four-step problem. I thought that like all that stuff from my past, I didn't want to tell anybody, was the problem. It's like, that was not the problem. I had a first step problem. I didn't understand how in much trouble I was in. And it talks about it in the book. It's like, you know, we have but two alternatives: go to the bitter end or accept spiritual help. And the fourth step, the rest of the steps is just that spiritual help, that's spiritual toolkit. And I didn't understand. I was always looking for door number three. I was looking for, I got to get a job, I get a better job, I got to get a girlfriend or a better girlfriend, I've got to move, I've got to do something else, I've got to change these outside circumstances, and then my life will be so comfortable and be so good, I won't want to drink. That was my plan, and it never fucking worked out. So it's suffice to say, like, 2 weeks after I get out of rehab, I'm drinking again. I'm living in like the halfway house, and like sneaking drinking, and finally get kicked out of there. And that's the first, no, that wasn't the first time. That was the next time I was homeless, living in my car. And it's like, had a 2-door Chevy Cavalier. So it was like the studio apartment of living in your car. And so I'm driving around Metro Atlanta. I don't really know anybody in Metro Atlanta except for people in AA. So I'm showing up to meetings drunk. People are letting me stay in their houses out of the kindness of their heart. And I cannot stay sober. It's like, I am just a hot fucking mess. So eventually, like, series of misfortunes, and I moved back in with my dad, back to North Carolina. And and things kind of like get a little better. I actually get like a halfway decent job, and I get like a condo with like, it's a pretty nice neighborhood, like pretty close to work, and so everything is and I'm kind of maintaining my shit a little bit, but like to like a minimal degree. I'm keeping a roof over my head and a job. And like, the thing about me with my drinking is like my world got very small when I was drinking. Like I was living in this like room in this condo. Like my roommates had furniture in their rooms, like a bed and stuff. I had a air mattress that had deflated, and a TV on the floor. And that was my living arrangement, and like, beer cans strewn everywhere. Like that was how I lived. And so I would just come home from work and basically just have a one-man drinking contest. And that was my life over and over again. And like, and honestly, that was fine. If I could have maintained that, I probably would not be here. But it got to the point, like the progression of the illness for me was that, I had started having to have a drink in the morning. If I drank the night before, I would have to drink in the morning just to kind of get rid of the shakes and get rid of the anxiety of having to show up and be a member of society. And so that became problematic, because if I have a couple of shower beers, that's fine. But a lot of times that would trigger the allergy, and then I would have kind of overshoot the mark, and I show up to work and Robert's on something and you should probably go home and that kind of stuff. And it just became really problematic for me. And that's when I kind of got back into the rooms, but like still, like even the threat of losing my job or embarrassing myself was just not enough to stop. And so through all this time, I was not in any kind of relationship with a female. I mean, I was like kind of overweight and poor and insane, the chicks don't like that apparently. I don't know. And so somehow I finally got a girlfriend, and her, I think it was definitely an Al-Anon situation. Her dad was a heroin addict and died of a heroin overdose. Probably trying to fix me, but I was thinking, finally, I can now like get my act together. I have this good gal, and everything's gonna be fine. And it was fine for like a couple of months, and then like the real me came out. I did something, I don't really remember what I did. I'm sure it was terrible. And she wanted to break up with me, and I was like, I'll get sober for you. And so I tried to get sober for this girl. And I go in, and this is when sort of like my nickname in AA in Charlotte became Relapse Robert, because I would come in and out, in and out, in and out. It would be like 2 months of sobriety, go back out again, 30 days of sobriety, go back out again, 90 days or whatever, just back and forth for a pretty long time. And I couldn't get sober for her. And because when you know, I was trying to like do everything that was asked of me about Alcoholics Anonymous, get a sponsor, go to home group, but I wasn't engaging in the work. And really the thing was, is like, I did not concede to my innermost self that I could never drink again. And I talked about, you just read it before the meeting. It's like, I was obsessed with the idea that somehow, someday I could control and enjoy my drinking. I was obsessed with that. And so after a month of not drinking, I just start resenting her for making me stop drinking, and it wasn't that bad, and yada yada yada. And I start drinking again, and like, um, eventually she tried to get as far away from me as she possibly could. She made it to Oakland, California. She tried to get further, but that was as far as she could get. And so finally I had to like look at myself. And so I went to like a outpatient treatment center, and they piss test you 3 times a week, and do the classes and all that stuff. And I had a sponsor, and I had a home group, and I was doing pretty good, and I got 10 months of sobriety. But all I was thinking about was me. I wasn't trying to help anybody. I was just wrapped in my own BS. And so I thought I had gone through the steps. I mean, I wasn't trying to sponsor anybody or really trying to carry the message, but I thought I had done all the steps. And so like, I still feel fucking terrible. I did all the steps. I'm going to meeting every day. I have a sponsor, trying to pray. It's just not fucking working. I'm still fucking miserable. And so I did the 13th step, which is, chasing girls on the internet. And so I meet this girl on the internet, and everything's going fine. She's like, "Do you want to meet up for a drink?" I say, "Yes, I do." And this is 10 months sober. And the date is for the following night on Thursday, and tonight's Wednesday. This is the night I'm supposed to go to my home group. So I call my plan is like, I haven't had a drink in 10 months. I need to get some practice in before I go on this date. I don't want to make a fool of myself. And so I call my sponsor, and like, I just call my sponsor and tell him I don't feel good. He's like, "That's fine." I'm like, going to the meeting tonight. And instead of like, I drove by like a fancy bar, but I went straight to the grocery store and got a box of wine. Because I'm classy. And this is why I know I'm an alcoholic, one of the many reasons. And so, they talk about it takes what it takes. And sometimes like early on in sobriety, I would like kind of regret like not getting sober earlier, but this relapse was really, really instructive. And it started from before I even put the drink in my mouth. It was like, my adrenaline was going so hard. I was so excited about drinking this alcohol that I was high. I mean, it was one of the best buzzes I ever had, just anticipating getting drunk again. And I was like, and that's just an abnormal reaction to alcohol. Sorry, I'm an abnormal drinker. But I drank that box of wine. I watched a baseball game. It was fine. I get up the next morning, and I wanted to drink so bad I could taste it. But but through this whole process, all in my head, never saying any of this stuff out loud, I had convinced myself that I can just drink on the weekends. I've never been able to pull this off whatsoever, but I convinced myself that I can just drink on the weekends. And so, and I'm not going to drink before work anymore, because that was really the problem. Drinking before work was the problem. But if I could just drink on the weekends at night, like a normal person, everything's going to be fine. And so I drink the box of wine, and I have some left, because it's like the Hanukkah miracle with that box of wine. There's always some left. It's like, you can drink and drink and drink. Like, I can't believe there's still stuff left. This is awesome. It's very economical. But and so that when I get up in the morning, I'm supposed to be at work. It's probably it's a Thursday. And I was like, but I'm not gonna drink. And I wanted to drink so bad. I was just like white knuckling it to work. It's like, I'm not gonna drink. I'm not gonna drink. I'm not gonna drink. I get to work, and we have like a meeting in the morning. And the topic of the meeting is how bad we're all doing, especially me. And that was like way too much to handle coming off a relapse. So I told him I was having a heart attack, and I left. And so I start, and which is fine. And they kind of bought it. They're like, whatever, get the hell out of here. And so I have this date later tonight. So I've got to get ready for the date. So I start drinking all day. I go to the States, and everything's really fine. Initially, like, I'm charming, but this is charming, funny me when it's fun. And like making out a little bit. It's like, relapsing was the best decision I ever made in my life. But apparently I'm sure it was my suggestion. Tequila shots got into the mix. I don't remember anything after that, but I did get a text from the girl. It's like, I'm blocking your number. Please go get help. But so minor setback. And so now it's the weekend. So it's the next day. It's Friday. This is the weekend. And so I get plastered all weekend. it gets to Monday and I really want to drink. I want to drink before I go to work, but I'm not going to do it because I'm a normal person who can handle drinking. And so I get to work and I kind of make it through and like I'm just like crazily hungover. So I kind of didn't even want to drink. So I made it through Monday. So like probably not an alcoholic. I mean, I mean, I made it through a whole day. Like that's good. That's good. Get it to Tuesday and I really want to fucking drink, but I'm not going to because I'm a normal drinker. So go to the gym, like eat some ice cream, watch some porno, whatever, like just trying to take my mind off of it. And then Wednesday coming around, I was like, really fucking want to drink. And so my plan was like, if I was in college, the weekend really starts on Thursday. So I can make it through Wednesday and drink tomorrow. And so that got me through Wednesday. And so Thursday, now I can drink. And of course, it was like a month of really insane shit that I won't get into. I've done some pit steps on it, but it was just like my life goes sideways immediately when I put beverage alcohol in my system. And I saw this as plain as day, this time around because I had enough information. I'd taken enough action, I think, to where I could see that like what I was doing was not enough. I thought I was doing enough. I thought just meeting attendance and kind of half-assing it wasn't gonna get me through, but it just didn't. And it says half measures avail as nothing. It's like, and it seems kind of unfair. Half measures should at least avail as half. I mean, but no, not nothing apparently. And and so this whole month of like really crazy shit and like I'll just then the first miracle that kind of happened to me, it's like it was a sales job and like you're only as good as your last month and I hadn't been to work in 2 weeks. And it's August 31st and I've got to show up and my plan is I'm drinking my breakfast 40 in the shower. I'm thinking it's like what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, resign, cash out my 401k, drive my 2008 Toyota Yaris with two missing hubcaps to Montana. And I just need some room to think. It's big sky country. I just need to do a little more thinking. This was my plan. So I'm going to resign, cash out 401k, drive to fucking Montana. And so I get to work and like I go to this little gas station next to work and buy a couple of Miller. Do you remember the Miller Light little screw-on caps? It was very, very convenient for drunk driving. But I had those 2 beers in the parking lot before I went into work to resign, and I got in before anyone else. And I like checked my email and I had like all these sales from people. And like people were just like sending me all their information, like with this job, they had to send me like social security number, bank account information, all this stuff. And I hadn't been there for 2 weeks and I was terrible when I was there. But like apparently I got all these sales, so I was able to like put a like halfway decent number on the board and I didn't lose my job. I was really thinking I was gonna lose my job. They're like, good job, Dees. See you later. It's like, okay. Um, and so, but at that point, I was just kind of like, I sort of made it a little bit of a decision to like change some things. And so instead of going home and like celebrating or just sleeping, I called this guy I knew from Alcoholics Anonymous. And I had been in that whole month of a relapse. I really tried to come back to AA, and it's really hard to come back. It's like that pride and ego will mess with you. It's like I know all this stuff, I know how to do it, it doesn't work, but I just didn't know where else to go. And so I went to this meeting with like in the midst of the relapse, and everything was like really going bad, and I was all sweaty and shifty eyed, and like this guy was looking for someone like me. He was like, this is because this is what he was taught to do. It's like we carry the message. We don't wait for some people to come to us. We go to meetings to go find people to fucking help. And he was looking for somebody like me. And so he like cornered me in the meeting. He's like, let me get your number. I'll get like call me. And so I got his number and then I just ran out of the meeting. I was like, that was just a little too heavy. But I was out of money. I don't know what I did, but that was why I went to the meeting because I was out of money. But anyway, but so what I did instead of going home and drinking some more, whatever, I called this guy and he said, we're now in a race between getting you through the work, connecting with a power greater than yourself that's going to solve your problem before your ego rebuilds itself and tells you it's okay to take another drink. So that next night, we got together before this meeting, and this was the Queen City group in Charlotte. It's a big speaker meeting. It's like 300 people there. And I had gone to that meeting many times when I was feeling bad or wanting to drink or whatever. And I would feel better. I would feel the power of the fellowship, and I would make it through another night sober. And I thought that's what AA was. I thought I would show up and into a meeting and not want to drink, and like just go to a meeting every single day and not want to drink, and don't drink, don't go to meetings. I really thought that was what AA was. And one of the things that this guy told me before the meeting that was revolutionized my opinion about Alcoholics Anonymous and what sobriety is and what's necessary to stay sober. He said, we met 2 hours before the meeting was supposed to start. He said, if we're still going through this, he started, I mean, first step me in that, went through the first step in the book. His doctor's opinion, went through the whole thing, and connected his experience with mine, see if we can match my experience with what's going on in the book. And he said, this is more important than the meeting. And that kind of blew my mind a little bit. And not to say the meetings are important, they are. It's part of three legacies, but no one had ever put it in black and white. It's like, this, you have to do this. And it says, we have but two alternatives. He's like, accept spiritual help or bitter end. Those are your fucking options. And like this simple kit of spiritual tools laid at my feet, I have to use them. I have to do something. And so, we, made it through the first step, made it through the second step. And then I was supposed to meet him to do the third step, like a couple of days later. And there was some kind of scheduling conflict, like he had to work or I had to do something, or no, he had to work. And he was like, and I said, well, don't worry about it. We can just do it tomorrow. It's like, no, we need to do this now. And so he dropped everything that he was doing and he came and met me and sat me down and we went through the third step. Third step was huge. I never kind of gave it short shrift. It's like, it just tells me the nature of my problem, so it's third step was important. And then next we launch on a vigorous course of action. So after we went through the third step, he's like, next we launch, which means now do it. You got 2 weeks to do your fourth step or get another sponsor. And I am convinced that that saved my life, because by day 3, after all this shit, I was convinced myself, it's like, it really wasn't that bad. And so that's why when I sponsor guys, I mean, not everybody's like that, but people who are like desperate, like strike while the iron is hot, like have that window of willingness. And the guys that ever, been successful with, it's like, get them through the work quick, because we need to get enough of you out of the way for the sunlight of the spirit to come in and actually solve your problem. It's not me who does it. I'm just trying to get enough of me out of the way for God to come in. And that's what happened for me. So, I have 2 weeks to do my fourth step. I procrastinate for 11 days. And then when the 3 days I do my fourth step, and then I sit down with him and the thing I didn't really want to tell him, he's like, and that I did not write down. He said, tell me the one, and the first thing he said to me, tell me the one thing you weren't going to tell me. And I did. And he had an experience that was very similar. So there's nothing new under the sun. And so, and that was what he was all about. He was all about, and this guy was like, talked about the sponsors, like, they have what you want. It's like, this guy drove a crappy car, had a crappy job, had a bunch of relationship troubles, but what I knew about him is like, he was passionate about this program and he knew how to stay sober. And I knew that I did not know how to do that. And that's, by some miracle, that's what I wanted at that point. And this guy just, he saved my life. And so, but he was all about service, unity, and recovery. It's like the 3 legacies, and I got to do all 3. It's like, I can't just stay sober on one of these things. And so service is, like Alex was talking about, it's like, it's not because I'm such a nice guy that I do service. It's like, I've been taught early on, it's like, service will save your fucking ass. When in doubt, nothing will so assure immunity from drinking as intensive work with another alcoholic. So if I'm trying to carry the message, if I'm active in a home group, that's going to ensure I don't drink. And that's good. And so got into service really early, and I was just a fucking lunatic at least for 6 months. But he was like, get a home group, get a service commitment. And I did, but I was getting service commitments at other meetings I was going to, and I would, encourage anyone who's newer in sobriety, or even if you're not, like, service positions really helped. And I went to this meeting once a week, and I was like the coffee guy at this meeting. I had no idea how to make coffee. I was like sludge. It was terrible. I was terrible at making coffee, but this is saving my fucking life. Bring Starbucks if it's that big of a deal. I need to do this to live. But honestly, making that coffee, it was like the only time I felt useful all week. Usually, it was like showing up and making coffee at that meeting. And so service union recovery, and I started sponsoring guy, and we got through the steps, and I had always heard in AA, it's like, you have to be a year sober before you can sponsor people. And my sponsor was like, where's that in the book? It's like, if you've been through the 12 steps and you've had the spiritual awakening, then you can carry the message. And so, the guys that, water seeks its own level. So the guys that were the guys that I was sponsoring were like the, psychos from the treatment center who had to get a, sponsor to live there. But trying to help them really helped me. And that, and I can't stress that enough. It's like, if I'm thinking about somebody else and trying to help somebody else, I'm not thinking about me. When I'm thinking about me, I'm in fucking trouble. And so, and that's just how I've tried to do sobriety. And so long story short, COVID happened. I went back to school. I finished my undergraduate, and I realized that history degree is kind of useless. And so I wound up kind of doing the same thing I was doing before. And COVID hit, and it's sort of like a YOLO moment. It's like, what the hell am I doing with my life? Like sitting in my room, like answering phones for Allstate. It's like, ugh, it's like hell. And so, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose, sort of thing. And so, and my spot mom was a public defender for a long time, and she would tell me about how she was able to help people, and I wanted a job or a career that could help people, that had some kind of meaning, because I didn't care about money. I was in sales, all you're doing is chasing a buck. It's like, I want to do something that was like meaningful. And so, I mean, maybe it wasn't the best decision, but I decided to go to law school. And so some lawyers help people. A lot of them screw them over and just, prey on their misfortune. So I'll try not to do that, but you never know. But so I decided to go to law school. I studied for the LSAT, and I get into a lot of different schools. But for some reason, Montana is where I wanted to be. That last night I had a drink, I was like, something's calling me out here, and sort of random. But I got into University of Montana. I moved to Montana to go to law school, terrified, just completely terrified, and just like, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. Like, that, what the hell am I doing here? All that stuff. And my first couple of weeks in Missoula, like I tried to go to meetings. My first date, as soon as I got off the plane, I went to a meeting, but I just never found like one that fit. And like, I was judgmental. I thought you guys were doing it wrong. And so that probably didn't help. But I looked on the internet, there was a meeting right across the street from where I live, the Solution Group. And I started going to that meeting every day, every Tuesday and Thursday, and got a service commitment, and that really saved my ass. And like, and I had no excuse to not go because it was right across the street. And so I was there pretty much whenever the lights were on, and that was like it's been a huge part of my sobriety here. And I've grown up in Missoula, Montana. It's like I would thought I matured, but I grew up here in Missoula, Montana, and so I'm in my last semester of law school, and if all goes well, I'll finish that and take the bar in July. I got married in August, and we had a little baby on December 2nd, Charlie. And so, little shotgun wedding there. Don't do the math, but but I mean, like none of this would happen. None of this would happen without me, surrendering. And I understand that like this is not any merit on my part. This is a gift. This is grace. God's grace is sufficient on almost every occasion. And I can, what's been going on recently is like I've been kind of, coming to terms with how fearful I am and just really just the basics. It's like I'm fearful, selfish, and dishonest. That's my nature. If I don't do something about it, that's how I'm going to be. And eventually that's going to lead to a drink. But, what happened for me, pretty early on is the 10th step promises. And 10th step promises says, I'm placed in a position of neutrality when it comes to alcohol. And I'm, not swearing off, not avoiding temptation. The problem's been removed. And that has happened for me. And sometimes that sounds like bragging, but all that is just God's grace. God's grace has entered into my life and removed the single biggest problem that I had. And I used to get up every single fucking morning thinking about drinking. It was my first thought in the morning. Like I said, I was obsessed with alcohol. My first thought in the morning is like, how am I going to drink today and get away with it? Or how am I going to somehow not drink today when I was trying to be sober? My first conscious thought was alcohol. This morning, that was not my first conscious thought. It's like, it's been a long time since I really thought about drinking, but I do need to come here and remind myself like who I am. I'm a fucking alcoholic. Like left to my own devices, I will eventually pick up a drink. And in the meantime, I'm going to be an asshole. And that's the bottom line. It's like, and so, what I'm doing is like trying to maintain the spiritual condition to the best I can. It has been difficult balancing, the marriage and family and law school and whatnot, but I got to understand where my bread's buttered. And I think there's opportunities to be of service. I got to try to take those. And not to say that like I can't take care of my other, and here's the thing, I can absolutely take care of my other responsibilities and do AA. It's like, this is the easier, softer way. Drinking was a full-time fucking job. I had to have a full-time job to pay for my other full-time job. And so it was like, chasing your own tail. It was not good. And so this is the easier, softer way for me. And I'm really, I'm grateful that I'm able to, try to help where I can. But, I'm trying to think of something profound to say, but I don't really, it's kind of drawing a blank. Anyway, it's like, I mean, you heard the story. It's like miracles happen here. Like and I think that it's available for anybody who wants it. And I just would encourage anybody who's new or if you're struggling, just to go back to the basics because they work every time. So thanks for letting me share.